leave no tossed dwarf behind.
This is the person who makes playoffs every year.
It's over there with McFadden's hands on Hillers.
Are you making fun of me?
I think it was one of those things where, hey, let me ride this while it's going here. That's what she said.
You're the only one I know that does that to themselves, Meryl.
That's what she said?
Oh, see, now that was appropriate. Somebody else says something and you can do it.
Here we go.
Are we live?
Live as we're getting, I guess.
Okay,
we're public.
Happy National Cheeseburger Day, everyone. Welcome to week 3 of the Sandlotcast, where despite the fact that sometimes things get out of control here, we have no replacement officials. We do, however, have a replacement host. That is Anthony Porcelli, the slideshow guy in your bottom corner there. Anthony, we're broadcasting live. What do you think, man?
I couldn't be any more excited right now.
You sound pretty excited, I got to tell you.
It's a little out of control. I picked the slideshow avatar to reflect my internal feelings right now.
It's a pretty good one.
It's very reflective.
That other beautiful face that just popped up on your screen is Chris Hillers. Hillers.
Yeah, sorry about that. Public.
What do you think about being broadcast on the internet right now?
I have mixed feelings at best. I feel like this has huge potential to go wrong.
It absolutely does. That's why we're doing it. So yeah, guys, you obviously aren't watching this one live, but you will be watching future ones live. Hopefully, we're going to let you know when we're broadcasting in the future. You'll be able to watch it on the Sandlotcast YouTube channel live. We're going to see if we can figure out a way to comment, if anybody even wants to do that. I don't know if anybody will or not, but we'll see.
Oh God. That's a horrific idea. We're just going to be cussing at the screen, and no one's going to know what we're talking about or where it came from or anything.
Oh, we could play the comments on the air. So.
Oh.
But anyway, that said, let's get right into it. We
And
don't want to run too long here. So
Okay.
Let's get right into it. We'll start with a little news story. And I don't know about you guys, but why are all these news stories happen in Florida? Have you guys ever realized like all these dumb criminal stories?
Yeah, a lot of them do. Yeah. South Carolina's another big hit.
Yeah. South Carolina's my neighbor now. Who's typing there?
That's me. I'm sorry.
You got to keep it down, man.
Danny Douglas has comments already. See, already this is things are going off the rails.
Where is he posting comments?
On the Google.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He wants the link. He can't wait.
Yeah.
Which, if he has this time to spare, you would wonder why he's not actually doing the podcast.
Yeah, you would wonder. So yeah, tell him to go to YouTube and search for Sandlotcast. He'll find it. All right. So that said, Johnny Brosler got in an argument over rent with a man who lived in the same property. So he took matters into his own hands. Unfortunately, those hands were filled with poop-stained underwear, which he allegedly smeared on the face of his victim. The Gainesville Sun reported. So this guy apparently owed him rent. So he took some underwear, took a crap in it, and then wiped it all over the guy's face.
Oh my God.
God, that's... Yep, Anthony, I can see that you're excited about it, but I think that's just horrible.
That's horrible. Why is that? I'm not even sure why that's even news, by the way.
Well, it's
horrific.
great news. The reported excrement incident started when Brosler entered the trailer, of course it's a trailer, of Walter Liddell and demanded money. Liddell was napping at the time, woke up and started arguing. So he woke him up with poo-stained underwear all over his face. Hillers, I know you've been in college. I remember you used to not like getting woken up a lot, but this has to make you feel a little better, at least, that we didn't, smear poo all over your face.
What about that story makes anyone on Earth feel better? Just the fact that can occur.
Makes me feel better that it's not me.
Is that what this is about?
Yes.
Did you have a rough week?
We're trying to make me feel better.
You've been having a hard time down there? That not waking up covered in poo is the new bar for happiness? Is that?
I guess. So let's get into week 2 a little bit. That's enough about poo-stained underwear and smearing it all over people's faces.
Quite enough.
Week 2, overall impressions here. I guess, Anthony, we'll go to you here. Do you have any impressions or anything that you think's going on in the league that's kind of interesting, or do you think it's just kind of same old, same old?
Well, I don't think anything's same old because, I mean, clearly it's only week 2. Although I think that in general we had some pretty spot-on predictions. I'm not even going to talk about our pick'ems, but just the teams that we thought would kind of stay in the dumpster sort of did. The teams that we thought would bounce back, for example, the Hitmen and Hillers sort of did.
Right.
No major surprises other than a couple of key injuries to some players.
Okay. Hillers, anything at the top of your mind there?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that
I
even
gotta go with
at the top of your mind?
Well, okay. For the purposes of this podcast, we'll say that it is. But yeah, I agree. There wasn't anything that was terribly surprising. I mean, there maybe is a couple of guys that would be a little bit worried about some of the, but if you ask me for a headline, other than the bad refereeing, I would be hard pressed to come up with one. And our power rankings, I think, mostly were about accurate. It's maybe too soon to say since week 1 for have anything drastically changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I think I can give you a headline. I mean, injuries and arrests plague week 2. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think so. The refs, I mean, I kind of feel bad for those refs. I mean, everybody's ragging on them, and killing them, but it's not like, they're doing the best they can. They're out there living their dream, reffing at the highest level. They're doing the best they can. They kind of got thrown in without any real preparation or any real experience. You figure when these other refs, the actual refs get thrown in, they don't get thrown in with a brand new crew 100%. Usually they bring in one new guy with a bunch of veteran refs, and he kind of feels his way out, and that's how they learn to ref the game over time. These guys just get thrown into the fire, and all of a sudden we're all over them, killing them all the time. So, I don't know.
It's tough, though, because, like it or not, they're supposed to be running the game. And, I've heard them likened to substitute teachers, but you still got to control the class, right? It's the NFL that should be blamed, but they're obviously not caving, because they're greedy bastards. So,
Right.
they got to find a way to do something or somebody's going to get hurt,
Yeah. No, I guess you're absolutely right there. Wow, my camera really stinks, doesn't it?
That's okay. We don't need your big melon head in high def.
Yeah, yours is pretty good though, Hillers. You're looking real sharp there.
Oh, really? This is a top of the line $25 webcam here. Picked it up at Best Buy.
Worth every penny.
Yeah. Yep.
We do have a
Genius.
viewer, by the way. Somebody is viewing. I'm not sure if it's Kiana or Danny, but we have one viewer. You can see up in the top right. Does it tell you guys that?
May God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah. So anyway, hello viewer. You're the
That's very
first ever
exciting.
on the Sandlotcast. Okay, you guys want to get into the team overviews here?
Might as well.
Okay.
Well,
Let's
what?
light this
Before
candle.
we do, I think I want to talk. Can we bring up an actual NFL item, which is the Josh Morgan pegging of Cortland Finnegan with the ball?
That's so stupid.
Sure.
I think what I want to say is, of all the mediocre receivers that the Redskins have sort of cut and then been indecisive about, you bring a guy in, Josh Morgan, who's never really proven anything in the past on the Niners. You give him a shot. And this is, I guess, his second game with the Skins. Doesn't really produce anything. Then loses the game for the Skins on that. Do you guys think the Skins should cut him? Because I do.
I don't think they should cut him. I think what's overlooked in that game is, it's so easy to look at a play at the end of a game and say, oh, he cost them the game, or, oh, that one play cost them everything. I think there's a lot of plays in that game that obviously could have gone either way. Refs calls, notwithstanding. But you guys remember at halftime? I'm kind of getting sidetracked here, Anthony, but I'll get back to that. You remember at halftime when the Rams lined up for a kick? Shanahan called timeout right as they kicked it, and he missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then
way to
they
ice
go
the
back,
kicker, Shanny.
they go back to re-kick, and he actually made it. Well, Redskins ended up losing that game by 3 points. So you can go back to that one just as well, because that kicker missed that initial kick. So it's easy to point it. I think it was.
And Joe Gibbs got blamed for losing a game just like that a couple of years ago. Did the exact same thing, and people were all over him.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he should be cut. I think some discipline is definitely in order. I'm pretty sure he knows. He said before the game, that wasn't something he could be doing. So he obviously knows about it. But if it continued to be a problem, maybe. But cutting a guy seems pretty harsh for just one stupid mistake in a game that was riddled with him.
What about you, Ant? You think he should be cut?
I just don't think there's. So what you talk about the kick, Shanahan tried to ice the kicker. I'm pretty sure that's a Shanahan invented move. That guy's a dirtbag straight to the core, and it didn't work out for him. Sometimes that works for coaches, but whatever. Here's Josh Morgan, who can control himself and should control himself and act professionally, but instead he clearly lacks discipline, and it ended up hurting his team. I mean, it's something that just didn't have to happen at all. And I'm pretty sure earlier in the week he even made comments about keeping his cool around Cortland.
He did.
He absolutely
he
did.
said exactly. And he even the guy by name that he threw the ball at, he called him out. Finnegan, I think. Called him out and said,
Yep.
you can't be the second guy in on Finnegan. I apparently forgot about that 3 hours in. But yeah, it was a bonehead move, but
There's just no excuse for it. I mean, there's plenty of guys that have, busted their hump to get on the Skins and didn't end up making it. And then here's a guy who luckily, got the chance, made it to the big time, and then blows it because of discipline. Yeah, I just think that's poor form. And it's pretty fitting for the Skins, in my opinion.
It's absolutely
maybe they should get him a 3-man security detail. Carry him around to follow him around.
Yeah.
Like
Anyway,
your boy Des Bryant.
Sorry for the sidetrack there.
No, that's not too bad.
Speaking
Actually,
of
sorry, go ahead.
fitted for the Skins, Anthony, who is that in your picture, in your slideshow?
It is a African American representation of my friend Dave. Today is actually Dave's 30th birthday, so shout out to that man.
Yeah, happy birthday. What's he eating there? That looks a little suspect.
It looks a little cheesy.
Not the grilled cheese sandwich, that weird fish thing. Anyway, we'll get back to it. Maybe not the most pertinent
cheese.
topic.
Perhaps not.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into team overviews here, guys. We don't want to run too long today. I'm not sure how this video is even going to work, so let's keep going while we can.
Sure.
Last week, I think we started with the maligned colluders. So this week, we're going to start with the dangerous precedents, and we're going to start from the top and go down with each of these groups. Let's go ahead and start with the sex cannons if we can. Anthony, I don't know if you wanted to share your screen there or not. That seemed like it might be kind of helpful.
I'm on it.
Okay, cool. Well, you're sharing your screen, but we're not going to see it unless you're talking, so I guess that's the weird part about it. Anyway, the sex cannons go in. They got even better, it seems like, this week. CJ Spiller continues his torrid, just running rampant on the league. They beat D-Money 103-83. Sex cannons go 3-0 now in the year. And Anthony, everything seems to be going right for Evan. Can this team be stopped?
Well, it looks like it could be stopped a little bit. I mean, Peyton Manning got slowed down by a team that doesn't have a historically very good defense. But, when one player goes down, all the other ones seem to step up and cover for him. Spiller went off with 29 points. Ray Rice did his thing. Ridley did fine. I mean, Vincent Jackson, 128 yards and a touchdown. He looks a little bit human because 103 is not a guaranteed win in this league. There were at least 3 other teams that would have beat Evan this week.
But this week was a lot more low scoring than last week, I feel like. I mean, 103 isn't a lot this week, but I think the highest scoring team was, 107 this week?
109.1.
Yeah, so
Anthony.
So, Hillers, I don't think this is a team. I know it's not a team I want to play. Are you playing? Aren't you playing them next week? Aren't you?
I'm playing them next week. And of course, I would rather not play them, but I think Anthony's right. I mean, I can't quite set my hair on fire about just over 100. You know what I mean? Peyton Manning definitely. I'm not going to freak out and say, he's got troubles, but he did have a pretty lousy first half with 3 interceptions there. And I don't know how much that's going to stick. I mean, obviously, C.J. Spiller, that situation is scary and awful, but I mean, I have trouble believing, that Buffalo can continue to put up, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns like every week once people sort of get keyed in on Spiller.
Right.
But his team up and down is just a really solid team, so it's always going to be, a high bar. But unstoppable? No. And especially when there's, like Ant said, 3 guys this week that would have beat him and a couple more that came within just a couple of points. I mean, we're all basically in the 90s except for a couple outliers. So,
right.
Very solid, very scary team, but not a team that, I'm going to just start freaking out about. And, Doug Martin is looking acceptable, but, he's not setting the world on fire. There's definitely some potential for this team to be unstoppable at some point.
Right.
A couple injuries, a couple underperformances on any given week, and you're right in there.
Yeah, he's got a lot of depth at running back. I mean, one of the top teams in the league right now for sure. It's a long season though. We'll see how it goes. But another great win by Evan, sitting atop that division right now. On the other side of things, he played D-Money and the Pimptastics, who scored 83 points. They go to 2-1 on the year now. And Aaron Hernandez, the big injury for this team, he goes down early in the game, so Danny doesn't get much from him, obviously. Anthony, is this a team that can withstand that kind of injury, or is this going to hurt him pretty bad?
So last week I think I talked about his shallowness at the running back position, which I don't think has gotten any better this week. Ryan Matthews still hasn't come back. So then losing one of his top-tier guys in Aaron Hernandez certainly doesn't make it any better for him. And I think you can see in the score what happens when Matt Ryan doesn't go crazy. He gets his kind of mediocre production from his running back core. He underperformed in wide receiver, and then that tight end spot is just a zero. So he barely broke 80 there. He's got to be a little bit worried, and for him it's going to be tough to replace the quality of his tight end from the waivers. There's just really nobody that's on the waivers right now that can give you that kind of
even if he wanted to trade, who's he going to trade for? He's not going to get Gronk. He's not going to get Jimmy Graham.
No, you're not going to trade for those guys. But
well, I know, but so who else in the tight end is going to, are people going to even want to trade for?
Well, there's a lot of backup tight ends out there that people have. I went and looked at the tight end waivers.
Sure, but they're backup tight ends. I mean, he could have Fred Davis, but it's going to be a real knock from Aaron Hernandez.
Right. I mean, I don't know if it's worth trading for a tight end. That's the thing. But
right.
But also, he doesn't have much to trade. I mean, I feel like he's kind of been, Matthews is out again this week. We're not even sure if he's going to be back next week. I feel like Danny's team's getting by on a lot of smoke and mirrors right now at running back between. Do you put Jonathan Stewart in this week? Sure, he gets his receiving touchdown. But it's
smoke and mirrors.
But he gets his receiving touchdown on a Jonathan Stewart. Mark Ingram scores, but 53 yards, 68 yards, and 75. I mean, I don't know. This running back core, I don't think is something that's going to hold up. And his receivers are pretty good. But with Aaron Hernandez going down, that's one of his elite players. I think it's going to hurt him. But long term, I think he will be fine, depending on how long Hernandez is out. And if Matthews comes back this week, he'll be fine. But
right. I don't know if he's pulling a prestige exactly, but Ryan Matthews coming back with something that he predicated the team on from the draft. He knew he was waiting for this to kick in. Week 4 or 5. So obviously the team looks like it has some weaknesses now. I mean, as long as he can keep from a giant losing skid in the early season, I think he's going to be playing that sort of mid-end season game to try to, fill in whatever holes he needs and try to just get a real solid core of guys. I am never confident with Jonathan Stewart or D'Angelo Williams, so he does have, a couple of lottery tickets out there, but at the same time, I can't panic for a team that, had Andre Johnson and Antonio Brown combined for something like 10 points and get an injury and a zippy in his tight end and still be within, 20 points of the guy we just called one of the best teams in the league. You know what I mean? So it's not insurmountable, but he could use a little bit more depth. I know Blackman probably isn't panning out the way he wants, and, that Nate Washington thing might have been last week as a sell high for him.
Yeah. I don't know how much you can sell Nate Washington for.
I'll make one more comment.
Not much.
I'll make one more comment here that just about every team in this league has a solid starting lineup, top to bottom. There's variations on the bench depth, but solid starting lineups up and down the league, except for maybe Danny's team at this point. He lost Aaron Hernandez with no replacement, so that's one gap there. And then his flex position. Let's say Ryan Matthews comes back, so he'll start Ryan Matthews, DeMarco Murray, and who's the flex?
I don't know. Ingram?
Are you scared of anyone on that team in the flex position? Jonathan Stewart, just like
hit or miss.
Hit or miss. Ingram is probably more so a miss, and then all his wide receivers down there are mostly misses this season. So he might be the only team with 2 gaping holes there.
Right.
That's true. That's a good point. And the tight end thing definitely isn't helping. I know he took a hit in my power rankings this week.
Yeah, he did. It's kind of like what you said, though, Anthony. There's no team that's really, other than the top 2 that I have in my power rankings, there's no other team that's really jumping up there to kind of seize the opportunity. So, tough week for Danny losing Hernandez. That's some consistent points, but over the next few weeks, hopefully he gets Matthews back, and that'll get things going again for him. Bag full of Jacksons, 3rd place in that division. Now they go to 2-1. They beat No Trash Cougars 107.4 to 95.4. They go to 2-1, like I said already. Is this team better than I thought, Hillers?
Yeah. I think you guys were really sort of hating on them early on, and I kept saying, they're not the worst guys here. There's some pretty solid guys. If Danny's looking for a tight end, Dave's got one on his bench. He's got depth here. For at least for some positions. With Redmond's, still contributing a little bit. He's got two good backup quarterbacks for some reason. I never understood that. Got a handcuff well. But all of the guys that he needs to produce are producing to the point where he can take a sub-point game from, Alshon Jeffrey, who I know he has high hopes for this season, who, that might well be justified, and Jermichael Finley, and get less than 5 points out of his defense and still be the second highest team scoring this week for the second week in a row. So I mean, Phillip Rivers does not seem to be as bad as he was last year. And that's a low bar maybe, but given that and the rest of these guys getting somewhere in the teens, it's a very solid team. Again, not blowing my socks off, but if we're talking about teams moving up the power rankings, they are creeping up there because it seems like these guys are ready to play. And Victor Cruz, obviously, from the Giants, lit it up, and that was more than enough. He just needed one good performance.
And Anthony. Yeah, I mean, you being a Giants fan, I know there was some concern about Victor Cruz coming in this year. He had so many long touchdowns. People were worried that he might not be able to keep contributing in that, like he did last year. Looks like he did this. He did, and looks like Dave's team is going to be able to rely on him a little bit.
I think this was a bit of a fluky week for Giants wide receivers, given that crazy fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That
I wouldn't count on 500 passing yards week in and week out from any quarterback.
No, but even if you take 10 points away from Victor Cruz, it's still a strong performance. So Cruz will be fine. Here's the one thing that I did notice about Dave's team that I couldn't figure out. So he's got Darren Sproles sitting there in his running back spot, who hasn't taken a rushing, a handoff in either of his games this season. He's every one of his points, and Sproles has scored a good amount of points. What is this?
11.5 this week.
11.5 and 12.8. So that's all been receiving. Is this a benefit that that Dave can start Sproles as a wide receiver in the running back slot, or does that not help or hurt him either way?
I don't think it really matters. I mean, Sproles is what he is. That's kind of what he was last year. He didn't have many carries, but he had 80 catches. I mean, he is basically a wide receiver out of the backfield. But he does play running back. He lines up as a running back, and he did actually get handoffs last year, so that's kind of changed. But that's part of this. Wow, who just burped? Was that you, Hillers?
Yeah, sorry.
Good Lord,
I
man.
had a calzone earlier that was must have been a half a pound of cheese in there at least.
Wow.
Ricotta.
Fluffy cheese?
Yeah.
Oh, the fluffy cheese.
Yeah.
Come on.
Doing a number on me.
What was I talking about?
Darren Sproles.
Oh yeah, no, Sproles. I think Sproles is good. Sproles is I think he's a good number 2. Luckily, Dave looks like he's got a good number 1 also in Frank Gore though, because everybody had Frank Gore written off again this year as dead. But
everyone
man,
hates Frank Gore, just like Steve Jackson and Fred Jack, a couple other guys. It's like people know they're going to be good, but they just hate to have them on their team.
Yeah.
For some reason, they just cannot stand the fact that this would be the guy that you have to pay like $40 to get.
Yeah, because he's boring. He's not the guy in the draft that you draft, and people go, "Ooh, good pick. Ooh, ooh, I wanted him." No, but he goes in there and he puts up, 10 to 20 points pretty much every week as long as he's healthy.
Yeah.
So,
and he's got his handcuff if he happens to not be healthy at some time. So.
Yeah, but Anthony, I think as far as Sproles go, I think he can depend on that. I mean, there apparently was some clamoring in ESPN leagues anyway to get Darren Sproles into. To make him a wide receiver, not a running back. But, he's listed on the team depth chart as a running back, and so they're going to, so he stays as a running back.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. I'm just trying to think if it gives him any kind of advantage, which I guess I don't think so. But interesting question.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of an advantage there. Other side of things here, no trash Cougars. Again, they go 0-3. Fire sale appears to be imminent here. Yeah. So 95.4 points, 0-3 now on the year. Michael Vick throws another 2 interceptions on the year now. He has 6 interceptions, I think 4 touchdowns total, and a fumble lost. Michael Vick, best pick of the draft, Anthony, like everybody voted on draft day?
No, sir. I didn't vote for him.
I didn't either.
It is quite amazing that Vick is still getting 25 points.
Yeah, you're ragging on Vick. He got 25. That's not the guy on this team you should rag on at all.
Yeah, but how long can he keep it up?
He's got a slew full of disappointments here.
Well, something's going to change. He's either going to, keep up on the turnovers and get injured, or he's going to stop the turnovers and just play well. I mean, I think it can go either way. It's hard to trust Vic.
Or he could keep up the turnovers and not get injured. You forgot about that possibility.
I guess that's possible too.
It is hard to trust Vic, but I mean, let's be honest. Do we really think that they're going to keep giving up, 4 turnovers a game on the Eagles? I just feel like that's something they could get not completely under control, but not that level of disaster all the time. I mean, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, but on the other hand, that's not this team's biggest problem. Like you were
No,
saying,
it's
Hillis.
not.
His running
not by a
backs,
long shot.
Chris Johnson, 28 rushing yards on the year. Darren McFadden, 54 rushing yards on the year, combined for under 100 yards in 4 combined games and 0 touchdowns. Hillers, is the fire sale imminent for the Cougars?
Who's he going to sell? At this point, I'm not even sure I want him. They look bad. Wes Welker, he banked a lot on him. He wasn't doing what he should be. He's got guys that are doing what they should be, but it's his wide receiver number 2 and a flex wide receiver that is just a promising rookie still at this point, and his tight end. Okay, I mean, that's not good. That's not something you can build your team on.
Yeah.
What value can he get that he would be willing to trade McFadden? For instance. Yeah, it's
Anthony.
not as much as he thinks he should get. I guarantee it. But having said that, it is a 95-point game. I mean, we can't shit all over it, but that's
Poo all over it.
That's
Poo
a
all over it.
problem.
We're
Poo all
broadcasting live here.
Oh, okay. I'll try to keep
Good
that
Lord.
in check if it's on the internet for the kid.
There's no curse words on the internet, Hillers.
For
Come
the
on.
kids, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
You'll see my butt later.
Anthony, is Troy still a team that can come back from this? I mean, or is he done? I mean, do you think he's finished here at 0-3?
I truly believe that his starting lineup are filled with talented players. However, recent history has shown that they do not produce in fantasy for whatever reason. I don't know what I would do if I were Troy right now. I would like to trade for Chris Johnson, but I don't know what I could expect.
I'd cut my hair if I was Troy right now. Have you seen his haircut? Oh
No,
God.
I haven't. I don't know what I would expect to get back from Chris Johnson. So I was looking over my team to say, all right, well, I think Chris Johnson might be at a buy low situation for me. So would I want to trade, let's say, Steven Jackson for Chris Johnson?
Right. No chance.
So I think pre-draft, you guys would laugh at me for even offering that because Chris Johnson's clearly like a first rounder. Steven Jackson's like a third rounder. Now, I'm not sure I would, even with Steven Jackson doing poorly and his job is being threatened by his rookie backup.
Yeah.
I'm not confident in that trade.
Well, here's the
I
problem. I mean, Chris Johnson was coming off a year where he wasn't a number 1 running back, and everyone was just sort of assuming this is a bounce back year for him, that he's going to do really well. But if he continued on the trend even that he was out of the last 16 games, if you just take last year and say this is what we have to work with in terms of the history for Chris Johnson, forget about that, terrible runs he was making, on everybody in the years previous. He's not a number 1, and it's you got to wonder is he even a decent flex?
I heard a stat about him today, and we're spending a lot of time on him. We probably don't need to.
Well,
but
it's a big story. He's a bum.
It is. Yeah. I heard a stat on him today that in his big year he was averaging over 2 yards before he got first contact in his big year. This year he's averaging negative yardage before he gets hit first. So it's not all him. He's not getting any help on that team because those teams are basically stacking the box and saying, Jake Locker, you're going to have to beat us. And he hasn't been able to do it, and therefore Chris Johnson hasn't been getting any room to run. So
if that's the case, you should still be worried, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't matter whose fault it is.
Right, exactly. So until that Tennessee offense turns around, I think Chris Johnson continues to struggle. And Darren McFadden, who a lot of people thought had potential, if he stayed healthy, to be the number 1 running back in fantasy. I mean, I'm not saying I would have predicted that, but he had the potential to do it based on his points per game that he had last year when he played. He was really good, and this is another guy who's just not performing like we thought he would. So,
I don't know. So I got a question for you guys. If you're Troy, do you hold on or do you fire sale now?
I don't think he could fire sale now and get the prices that he thinks that he needs out of these guys. I mean, if he was to do a fire sale right now, he would end up with a perfectly mediocre team. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
you can't get a superstar here.
the thing out there that people want the most, that if you look at the trading block, it's people want number 2 running backs, and they're willing to deal wide receivers. Well, what wide receiver are you going to deal for Chris Johnson right now? You're not going to deal much that Troy wants that he's going to keep. I mean,
And he's already said Jimmy Graham's on his team for life. I mean,
Sure.
I would trade one of my running backs for Jimmy Graham right now, but
Yeah.
he's not on the block. It's not
Right.
for sale.
Yeah, he's kind of stuck right now. I feel like he needs a breakout game from a McFadden or Chris Johnson, and then if he really does want a fire sale, then it's let's sell high and go with that. Still got a doubleheader week coming up in 2 weeks. If he can go 2-0 in that week, and maybe hang on until then, you end up 2-4. You're not out anything yet.
Yeah, it's just 3 losses too. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen teams come out of 3 losses in a row. It lots of points in the season. It really doesn't. It's not a death knell, but it is halfway to sort of the death knell of 7 losses.
I'll give you this. In that doubleheader week, Chris Johnson plays Houston, and Darren McFadden plays Denver, and both of those are pretty stiff defenses. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, not good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you're right, Ann. That's not a great matchup. We'll have to see who he's playing against there. But yeah, that's kind of that division. Well, Troy's definitely not where he thought he would be after 2 weeks in here. Welfare recipients we'll go to next, guys. Anthony, this is your division here, and this one's a little funny because I figure we typically start with the best team down to the worst team as things go. And I had you penciled in as losing your game. And you had a heck of a comeback. I don't know why I didn't expect it. I mean, for some reason, I should have known. I mean, I'm a big Roddy White fan. I think he's a great fantasy player. But at the end of the night, I looked and I had to reverse the way I was ranking these last night. So, Anthony, you pull out a great comeback here. You go to 3-0 with a 109.1 to 100.2 victory over TDJ, and Steven Jackson goes down for you, which is kind of a big issue. I mean, what are they saying about his groin? See?
Explain the state of it in detail.
So I'm not so sure anything happened to his groin. I think that he got benched for a bunch of wacky plays that happened in a row. First one being Jeff Fisher's comment or challenge that wasn't challengeable, followed by a Steven Jackson touchdown that wasn't ruled a touchdown, followed by Steven Jackson spiking the ball in anger, followed by him getting benched for Darrell Richardson.
Yeah,
I don't know.
think it's Daryl, actually.
Whatever it is.
You say that. Never mind. I'm not going to go there.
Again, you mean?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that was you were a little upset when he didn't get that touchdown. I remember you sent me an IM that I'm not going to repeat over the waves of the internet here, but
think of the children, Merrill.
They were not happy words that you sent me.
I just don't know what that situation is anymore. I don't believe that his groin was injured. Now they say it's fine miraculously. I wish they would kind of come out and say that Steven Jackson's the starter or Darrell Richardson's the starter. And now I'm going to have to play some kind of guessing game every week, or at least for the next couple of weeks, who's going to get more touches.
Jackson was averaging over 6 yards a carry at that point. I don't think he's in danger of losing his starting job. I think it maybe it was a combination of him spiking the ball and him being a little dinged up. They just kind of used it as a way to get him out of the game. I don't know, but I wouldn't be too worried about him yet. I think you give it another week or so, and then you can start panicking.
Yeah.
Pillars. Anthony's team, 3-0 at this point. Is this where you saw his team being?
It was a pretty good team. I don't know if I expected them to do quite as good as they're doing, but I don't know why not, really, when I look at the lineup. I mean, nothing here that's – maybe I would have been a little bit worried about Tony Romo, but again, I mean, this is how he won all those games last year, is he just has a bunch of guys that are chipping in on the teens to the point where he can take a couple of hits, like the Steve Jackson thing, and it's not a big deal. And that's a solid way to build a team as long as it works, and it seems to be working. So Lynch, Jackson, good starting running back. Steve Johnson, Roddy White, seem to be quite serviceable as we thought they, and for Roddy White, of course, more than serviceable. Maybe the jury's still out a little bit on Brandon Lloyd, but Vernon Davis looks to be benefiting really well from what's going on in San Francisco right now, and that could be sort of a big upgrade from what he had last year, if that continues.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, Anthony, you're in a kind of a unique spot where I feel like you're winning early. I don't feel like you typically come out this strong, and you're typically scrambling about halfway through the season to try to eke out wins. So this is kind of a weird position for you.
Uh, I'm not sure that's true. I mean, last year I think I started real slow, but the previous 2 years,
Hillers, don't bite your fingernails.
Oh, sorry.
previous 2 years I had some strong
I
starts.
hate
So,
this webcam thing.
all I got to do is maintain and not make any crazy moves. I don't want to trade away the depth that I have, or at least not too much. So
I
just don't
want
do
you to
anything
trade it.
drastic. Just don't do anything drastic. That's the key.
Yeah. No, it's working for you. That's 200-point weeks in a row. I think Marshawn Lynch is a straight beast. As long as he stays healthy, I think you're in pretty good shape. And Brandon Lloyd not working out maybe like you thought, but hasn't been bad, hasn't been good either though. So we'll see how he goes.
Well, I mean, I was going to bench him for Garcon until I think Garcon's probably might be a better start than Lloyd until Lloyd starts producing or Brady starts, getting in sync with him. So we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you have one big advantage over some teams right now, I would think it would probably be your bench and your ability to put in a guy that's at least serviceable, if not as good, as some of your starters. I mean, I know I'd be starting Bennett if he was on my team, for instance.
Is that you asking for a trade?
Even maybe in the flex.
Yeah, I could
You'll
put him
find
in
out
flex.
when you see the transactions.
Okay. All right, yeah, that's enough on your team, Anthony. People don't want to hear about it anymore.
All right.
Peanut butter jelly time. Another strong team coming in this week, near the top of our power rankings. They end up beating Assassins in kind of a something that's sparked a little controversy on the message boards today. Though I think that was handled well by the two of you guys. So they go to 2-1. They win 92.8 to 88.6. And Robert Griffin III, Anthony, new quarterback in your division here. You a little bit scared? Wee bit scared?
Yeah,
scared?
I'm afraid. I didn't think he would have the kind of start that he's had. I didn't think he was going to get those kind of rushing yards. Ugh. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going. I don't know
I
what's
mean,
gonna
he
happen.
didn't have that great of a passing day, but the thing he did have was he had a ton of rushing yards, and that's
And a
the
couple
beauty
of
of it.
touchdowns to go with it,
Yeah,
too. They're doing it
exactly.
on the goal line, too. They're not just doing it as a play, so.
Yeah. So, that was. I mean, that's a big surprise. I know. Yeah, that was the thing I said coming in. If RG3 works out, this is going to be a team we have to worry about. He didn't put up a lot of points, and the latest news actually right now is Michael Turner got arrested. He had such a good time last night. He went out and got himself a DUI, and he was so happy that he won that game last night. I guess so. Not that he was contributing a ton for Brett, but Michael Turner's Michael Turner, and he lost his RB2. I guess he goes to Pierre Thomas now as his RB2, Hillers.
That's Brett's real problem here. I mean, in a way, it's kind of funny that we're talking about Brett as like, oh, this is a great team, and then we were saying how Troy needs a fire sale, and if they played this week, Troy would have won. But
Yeah, that's true.
but I just can't bring myself to be worried about some of the big underperformances Brett had this week. And the James Jones thing, okay, maybe a little bit of a flyer, but the Packers had a bad week.
Julio Jones.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Julio Jones. These J Joneses are killing me. They really need. Yeah. So he had a bad week. Jordy Nelson had underperformed. Tammy
Again.
underperformed. Only 1 point out of his kicker. I mean, a bunch of disappointments here that I just don't feel will line up like that all the time, and so that's why I'm not nearly as worried. But the running back depth problem is for real, because he does not have a good replacement. Pierre Thomas is as good as he can get, and I feel like the way the Saints are playing right now, it's just going to be real hit or miss. Now, will that sink him? Not against the Assassins, but depending on what his schedule looks like in the doubleheaders.
Pierre Thomas had a pretty good week this week.
He had a pretty good week this week. Yeah, so I'm saying.
Jumping back to Jordy, though, Jordy's had 8.4 points exactly in his first two games, and Aaron Rodgers is not looking like the same Aaron Rodgers he was last year. Should Brett be worried a little bit about Jordy Nelson, Anthony?
I have Jordy Nelson on a couple other fantasy teams, and I'm a little worried about him. He doesn't get his. I mean, he's getting the targets on. He's getting the targets, on paper, but when you watch the games, it doesn't seem like he's getting the same kinds of targets as he did the last year. He's not getting those deep balls. They seem to be going more towards Randall Cobb and James Jones. When Greg Jennings comes back, I mean, who knows? There's just not a lot of ball to go around on that team.
Well, I know how you like the deep balls, but I implore you not to worry too much. I mean, They played, a couple of really tough defenses. Jennings was out, and so Jordy Nelson was getting a lot more attention this game than he normally does, and
Yeah.
probably maybe a little less ability, to go deep because they may probably had a safety, looking his way. Rodgers is looking slightly more human, but I mean, I think put in the context of what he did last year, I think people were just expecting godlike football because it was maybe one of the greatest seasons ever thrown by a quarterback. In some ways, it's provably so.
Right.
So, there's a little bit of growing pains here, but it's a largely the same team, and I feel like this is something that they can work out. And 8.4 2 weeks in a row out of a receiver, not that bad.
Yeah,
it's not 25 points, but it's not that bad.
It's kind of the same thing that Jordy did last year. The difference was he got the touchdowns last year, and he hasn't gotten them this year. So I think he will turn it around. Julio Jones obviously will turn it around. This team's wide receivers are not his problem. As you mentioned, Hillers, it's his running back depth. And I still don't want to play this team. I think he'll be
Not
okay.
at all.
I mean,
Not
he's
at all.
not. I guess he's not putting up as many points as we thought, but he's still coming out. Still came out with a victory this week. So
If you're concerned about your running back depth, Brett, this is a trade offer. Send me something better than Miles Austin, and let's talk.
better than Miles Austin. Who's better than Miles Austin?
I don't know, the rest of his receivers?
You think he's giving you Julio Jones for Alfred Morris,
Well, not Alfred Morris. Maybe somebody else.
Reggie Bush?
What's wrong with Reggie Bush?
He's not Julio Jones.
Julio
Okay.
Jones wishes he was Reggie Bush. Reggie
Yeah.
Bush got, what, 30 points this week?
Yeah.
Julio Jones got 1.
Yeah, Reggie Bush is Mr. Reliable.
Yeah, he's the greatest.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Touchdown Jesus. Former power, as Anthony put it last week here. Loses to EBS, puts up 100 points, but falls to 0-3. And this team, again, this is another team. You look at them, you think, oh man, they're struggling right now. But like Troy, I guess he still put up points this week. So are we, are we a little early on the worrying here, Anthony?
So I'm going to talk about Dwayne Bowe a little bit. Dwayne Bowe got shut down in that Bills game, and I understand that fantasy points are fantasy points, and they count no matter what. But all of those yards and both of those touchdowns came late in the fourth quarter when the game was already won by the Bills. So, I want to say take those points away. I understand that you can't, but take those away, and now you're looking at around an 80-point week or, mid-80s. That's what I think is going to happen with Touchdown Jesus for the majority of this year. Until he can fix his RB2, until he can get a little bit more steady production from Bo and Lance Moore, and then, as soon as he can start trusting his tight end spot, a lot of question marks on this team.
Yeah, I mean, Hiller's what I wrote down for this team is he's Cam Newton, MJD, Calvin Johnson, and a bunch of bums. I mean, that's pretty much
Basically.
it right now. So
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to lump Dwayne Bowe into the bum category here. I mean,
yeah, but Dwayne Bowe is
I understand what Anthony was saying, but
he's either 1 point or 30 points. I mean, it's
Right.
usually it's the 1 point.
right. But I mean, I'm saying that's perfectly acceptable for a number 2 wide receiver. I'd still put him at the high end of number 2s.
That's true.
Okay, but the team does have problems. I mean, as much as I was saying, well, we don't have to worry about Brett because we really believe that his players that put up 1 point, we're not going to always do that. Well, on this side, you got Cam Newton putting up 27, Dwayne Bowe putting up 22, Gostowski putting up 17, and nothing else, and nothing on the
12
bench.
from MJD.
Yeah, nothing on the bench to come help him out here.
Yeah, look at
You
that
know,
bench, by the way.
It's
A lot of
like
zeros.
zeroed out. I mean,
Yeah.
it's.
Basically 5 zeros on his bench.
Right. It's going to be really tough for him, especially if Beanie Wells doesn't have the year he had last year, which would not surprise me at all, especially considering they haven't even worked Ryan Williams into that game all that much.
Well, they tried. He's not
today.
looking great either.
Right. He's not. I mean, but this is not a very good. This is not the same team it was 2 years ago or even a year ago, and it's former power seems appropriate. Again, it's still 100 points, but I feel like you had a couple of things really pan out for him, fluky things like the 22 points out of Dwayne Bowe, and it's still a losing effort this week. So
Yeah, he put up
not good.
100 this week. He put up 85 last week. Anthony, they're not terrible scores. What are we so worried about with this team?
We don't like their players.
Yeah.
Is your name Anthony?
Shut up.
I
what
mean,
it is.
that's the case. I mean, same thing all three of us have said. It's just those those couple of holes that are question marks that I guess,
You're all about the balls in the holes.
yes, thank you.
I thought we were being clean for the internet. You lecher.
But that's not clean?
You know what it is.
I
Dog
don't.
whistles.
Can you explain it?
Do you want me to explain it in detail? I thought we were on the internet.
Sorry, Anthony. I rudely
I can draw a
interrupted you there.
diagram over here on webcam now, right? I got little post-it notes.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, don't make me start writing the post-it notes.
Sorry, Ant, but I mean, yeah, this is a team you're going to have to play 3 times, right? So, are is this a team you're worried about having to play?
The players themselves, there's nothing wrong with the players themselves, but when you compare starting lineups across the league, it's just one of the weaker ones in those couple of spots that we talked about.
You can go ahead and say no.
He's hedging. He doesn't want to jinx himself here.
Yeah,
So
I prefer bold moves.
Speaking of lineups, we're not terribly afraid of at this point. We get to the Assassins, who start out 0-3, I think, again this year. They score
Seems like it, doesn't it?
88.6 points. Again, not a terrible score. A little low for this week. The scores are really bunched together. We didn't have any really bad weeks. We didn't have any really good weeks.
Assassins is 1-2, by the way. Better than TDJ.
Oh, 1-2. I'm sorry. Okay. Look at that. I wrote that down wrong. 1-2 Assassins. And the problem with this team is, and everybody kind of knew this coming out of the draft, is they need Brady, Charles, and Larry Fitzgerald to do well if he's going to do well. I mean, those are his kind of money players. And guess what? Those players are not doing well. Tom Brady looked horrible last week. Jamal Charles barely got on the field and was on the sideline riding a bike halfway through the game. And Larry Fitzgerald can't get a ball from Kevin Cobb. So, Anthony, you're the resident Brad expert here. What's going through his mind right now?
I don't think it's panic time yet. Brady is still a good quarterback. He's still a top 3 quarterback in the league, maybe 5 quarterback in the league. He got a big help with Michael Bush being the starter probably for the next 2 to 6 weeks. And therefore he can afford a Jamal Charles slump, and he can put Sean Green in there in his stead. Percy Harvin's solid, and Fitzgerald's he gets the targets. He's a talented wide receiver. In the draft, he was the number 2 wide receiver in the league. Jared Cook's a hole, but I think he's still got a good starting lineup, and it got better with Michael Bush.
Okay. Yeah, it got better with Michael Bush, and we say, okay, don't worry. Well, I don't say that. You say that. But in the next, 3 weeks, he's going to be playing Troy coming up. Maybe he wins that one. Then in the doubleheader week, he's got the Sex Cannons and you, Anthony. Then Touchdown Jesus, bag full of Jacksons, then it's right back into the mixer with a bunch of guys up from our division in his Week 7
Yeah, but what does that mean? We don't know anything about
Well,
any
it
of these
means
teams
I
yet.
like a lot of those teams better than I like this team. So I would be very concerned. And he only has to get this, 7 losses, right?
Yeah.
That's not too far from there, and especially coming out of the Week 4 doubleheader week, especially considering by that time, Forte is probably going to be back in the mix. That's not going to last forever, and I don't even know if it'll get him through Week 5.
Right.
So what are we really saying here? Brady does not look like he used to look, and with the new quarterbacks that are doing, really pretty well, I don't know if he's a top 5 guy anymore either. You know what I mean? I right now I'd certainly rather have RG3 than I would Tom Brady. I'd rather have a few different guys.
Yeah,
And
that's a fair point for sure.
And McGahee is the only one that really performed for him here, and otherwise he's got 5 or 6 guys under 6 points here.
Yeah.
That's not guys contributing everywhere. That means you're going to need huge blow-up weeks. And where's it coming from? It's obviously not coming from Jamal Charles. You think it's going to come from
that's
McGahee
what he's hoping.
week out? Even if it does, it got him 88 points. So I think this team stinks.
Okay. That's fair assessment. If you like this team, you have to like Brady, Charles, McGahee, Fitzgerald, and Percy Harvin, and those are the guys that have to carry him. He's not going to get 23 points from the Packers D every week because they only play Jay Cutler twice, so he's not getting that. And Jamal Charles has not worked out for him. So this is a team who's ridden Tom Brady to a championship, not winning a championship, but runner-up before. And he could do it again. Again, it's 88 points. I'm not sure what he put up last week, but he's
You know whose fault this is? Sean Green. He's poison.
he's poised.
I told him he was poison, and by the way, he had 91 points last week, out of a somewhat similar performance.
Yeah, I mean, he's putting around 90 a week. It's not bad.
Not good enough.
Not good. He's going to need some favorable matchups, but yeah, he Percy Harvin though, guy's legit. I mean, is he a top 10 receiver by the end of the year? You think?
Top 10 might be pushing it.
Guy had like 13 targets this week.
Top 10 is still, that's a high bar.
Did we lose you, Anthony?
No, I say no on top 10, but I think he'll be decent top 20.
Okay. Oh, and before we move on, did you see that Kellen Winslow might be getting signed by the Patriots because of the Aaron Hernandez injury?
Ooh.
Everyone poo-pooed me when I said there's no such thing as a bad $1 pick at the end of the draft because he picked up a cut Kellen Winslow. Now he's going to be playing tight end for the Patriots for $1. Yeah.
You got a new starting tight end? Is that what you're saying?
No, Brett Watson has him. Or had him. I think he dropped him, so it didn't.
Yeah, he doesn't have many more.
Yeah, but
You can go pick him up for $1, maybe.
because he listened to you guys. He listened to the peer pressure.
So
You talk to him more than we talk to him. Maybe
gonna
he just
give,
wasn't listening to you.
I'm going to give Assassins one more week. I'm going to hold on and say stick with it, and then if he can't break 100 next week, it's over.
Really?
Well, he's facing Troy, so this is two teams. We're going to see who's going down in flames harder.
Yeah, something's got to give. Although he's got to win. I mean, he could pull to 500 next week if he beats Troy and 2-2. That's where I hope to be
Yeah,
this week.
who knows?
Malign Colluders division, the final division here. And at first place in this division right now, Hiller's Collusion. Look at this guy.
Yeah.
It's Iron Pirates Mystery Crew, 105.7 to 67.8 in the beatdown of the week. He goes
Suck
to
it, Nick.
2-1, 2-1 on the year, and Hiller's. Everybody was kind of emailing throughout the week and asking you, "Are you a little worried about Aaron Rodgers?"
Here, is my webcam good enough that you can see what this says?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Am I a little bit worried? Only a very little bit. I mean, like I feel like I already made all the points at talking about his receivers here, but he's still a great quarterback. He still had a touchdown. It was a really, sort of slow game. I was like, where are the touchdowns? Where? And you know what? It's not as much his fault as it was his receivers. I mean, he must have hit 6-7 guys in both palms, and
Right.
they just dropped it. And I just don't feel like that will continue across his entire receiving core week in and week out. That's something, one guy might get a case of the dropsies, but Greg Jennings was out, and literally everybody did it at least once this last week. And so, and it was two tough defenses, too. I mean, the Niners are world-class defense, and the Bears are really tough, defense also. And, I think he's got the Seahawks this week. I'll be starting him. I'm not going to be throwing Jake Locker in there. You know what I mean? Nothing near that sort of panic. If there's anything, weak about my team, it's what we've been saying, all along. It's a receiver problem, and maybe a tight end problem now too. I don't know.
Yeah, Anthony. I mean, I heard, I don't know, I read or it might have been on ESPN rumors or something, but that there's talk about possibly trading Greg Jennings at some point here in the next few weeks. I mean, if that happens, this team might be in a severe wide receiver crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that could really undo this team, Anthony, or you think Danny Amendola is enough to carry this receiving core?
Oof. I don't think Amendola is going to do anything for the rest of the season like he did this past week at the Redskins. He just had way too many targets way too many targets. It's not sustainable. I mean,
right.
He had about 50% more than his average targets.
Right, so he's not going to be scoring 20 points again. So that being said, I think his receivers overperformed.
Okay.
Does losing Jennings hurt his team? Clearly it does. I still think the wide receiving core is weak. But again, Aaron Rodgers is that good that he can make up for one of those slots, and hitting pay dirt with Alfred Morris got him the depth at running back where he might be able to start 3 running backs, even with the Bradshaw injury, that might be able to make up for one of those wide receivers doing poorly.
In a way, it was almost a comfort because it means I won't leave a running back scoring more than 20 points on my bench for 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
That is now 2 weeks in a row I've had a guy 20-plus points just
Yeah,
riding the
it's-
pine.
I mean, it's a problem, but it's not a bad problem to
It's
have.
not a
and
bad
that-
problem. And are we
yeah.
going to talk about how great Reggie Bush is doing? He looks like a beast.
He
Yeah,
does.
he's looking good.
Said his goal was to lead the league in rushing by the end of the year, and so far, I think
He's on pace.
He's number 2
Kicking
right
ass.
behind C.J. Spiller in rushing right now. So, yeah, he's coming. By the way, Danny Amendola, this is his first 100-yard game in his last 33 career games. So, not quite
Yeah,
the yardage
but-
receiver that we think he is.
So, no, but couple things on Amendola for you Amendola haters. He
All
had
right.
80 catches in 2010. He was hurt
Spin
throughout
it.
11.
Spin it.
He
Spin
gets
it.
so many looks. Look at the targets. His targets are always in like the mid-teens, and Bradford is looking better this year. So I don't see any reason why he can't be a solid number 2. Is he going to get 20 points a week? No, of course not. But
He's a low-end number 2 at best.
I don't think it's a freak occurrence, and I think you're going to see a few more good games out of Amendola this year. Whether it gets to be quite this good, maybe not in terms of targets, but 150 and a touch. Yeah, I can see it happening again this year against the right opponent.
So my prediction is every week that Hillers has a bye in one of his running backs, one of the 3 running backs, is the week that he loses. So essentially, he can't make up for any of those bye weeks in those slots because I don't think he can make up the points really in wide receiver and his bench.
And if Rodgers looks human this year too, that's not going to help him too much. So,
Right.
But yeah, so far first place, 2-1, sitting pretty. Hillers is off to a better start than usual. So
Much.
if your second half picks up like it normally does, you'll be in pretty good shape here. On the other side of things, Iron Pirate Miscreant Crew came out pretty strong last week, won both games, but this week had the low score of the week, scoring 67.8 points and losing to you Hillers. And the big reason here is a lack of touchdowns. I mean, he just didn't get really any touchdowns from his running backs. He got one from one of his receivers, and really that was his undoing. I mean, he had a lot of yards.
Also a lack of yards. Not very good.
Yeah, I guess there was a lack of yards, yeah.
3 touchdowns for what? How many guys we got on the roster here? 10? 9? I don't know. That's terrible. That's terrible.
No, 2 touchdowns.
No. Drew Brees had 2 and AJ Green had 1.
Drew Brees had 2. Oh, the rushing touchdown. That's right. Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, we so Nick's team struggled a little bit this week. Still 2-1, tied for the lead in the division, but his wide receivers, Anthony, didn't really help him out too much this week.
Yeah, Nick came up to me on after the last week's podcast and gave me a big FU for putting him number 9 in the power rankings. And I tell you, I don't think he's going to be any happier this week.
Uh-oh.
Well, it's 67 points, though. How do you lift him up,
Yeah, I don't know.
Touchdowns.
You don't. You don't.
Yeah.
He's got a bad running back situation, especially in Donald Brown. And yeah, when he doesn't get the touchdowns, it hurts. When anyone doesn't get touchdowns, it hurts.
Yeah, but I think he thought he was going to get more out of Donald Brown than it's like I like Donald Brown. I was a Donald Brown believer, but $25 is a lot of bucks to spend on a guy like Donald Brown. I liked him because I thought he could overperform his previous slot of number 3 running back.
Right.
Not that he was going to be blowing it up.
He's a tough number 2, but pretty much everybody has a tough number 2 in this league. And his other big problem is Eric Decker. I mean, I get it, number 2. His other big problem is Eric Decker in that Demaryius Thomas looks like the guy you want in Denver and not Eric Decker all of a sudden. And so people thought, wow, he's got a great top 3 receivers there with A.J. Green, Brandon Marsh, and Eric Decker. Well, yeah, those top 2 are good, but Decker's kind of a flex at best at this point. And he's not really any better than Randall Cobb, Devon Bess, or maybe even Randy Moss, who he's got down there on his bench. So the receiving core not as strong as maybe we thought it was, unless Decker starts getting more targets. And Drew Brees, on the other hand, has he's been okay, but he's not. He's one of those top tier quarterbacks that's been underperforming a little bit. And
along with the rest of the Saints.
Yeah, along with the rest of the Saints. I mean, he really needs Brees to pick it up here and help and carry him through. Maybe some tough weeks if Anthony has his say about it here.
So I think that Decker's gone up against 2 tough secondaries in Pittsburgh and Atlanta. So give Decker a couple more weeks to prove something. I mean, it's hard to believe that Peyton can't make his receivers look great. so that's got to pick up a little bit. And Brandon Marshall, I mean, that's just a fact. That's the Cutler factor right there. If Cutler has a good week, I think Marshall has a good week.
Cutler
And,
sucks.
If Cutler's throwing 4 picks and yelling at his guys, then this is what's going to happen with Marshall.
What a douche. What a douche he is.
Yeah, it was a bad week for Cutler, and this, it's going to be a bad week for Marshall, like you said. Marshall will be fine long term. His tight end is not great either. Greg Olson, not really working out. So he's gonna need.
Should Nick trade somebody, and if so, who?
I was talking to him today about it, and really all I want on his team is
AJ Green.
Is maybe Breeze. I think now is a good buy low for Breeze. I think Breeze is going to be fine. I think he'll be a top 3 quarterback by the end of the year because they're going to have to throw because they can't.
They're going to be hucking it up all the time.
Yeah, he's going to get 5,000 yards again, no problem. He's had 2 300-yard games already, so I think he'll be fine. Which I think will help Nick. At least compete. For a wild card spot in the end. But I don't know. I mean, if he trades, he's going to need another running back. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what he should do. His team's a mess.
Do you think he hit any jackpots there with Jacquizz Rodgers on his bench with Turner getting arrested?
I don't know. I don't think Jacquizz Rodgers is all that everybody's got him cracked up. Everybody's excited about him because they thought Michael Turner was dead. And that team's just not running much. So I don't think Jacquizz Rodgers is going to get him too much there.
Nor is Turner. Yeah, we're not certain how dead he is either. I mean, what is it? What was it, DUI or something? It's not like he shot a guy.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
2 games maybe.
Yeah, it's not like he shot a guy. That's at least 2 games.
I got shot!
Hitmen, next team we have on our list here. Hitmen beat the Mental Midgets again. I feel like for some reason, I feel like I play well against Seth. I feel like I beat Seth more than he beats me. But maybe that's just because I won this week. I don't know. But Hitmen scored 98.3 points to the Midgets 87.4. Go to 1-2, first victory of the year for the Hitmen. And also the minigame winner, which was highest scoring player this week, thanks to Eli Manning, who put up 37.5 points. Thanks to
500 yards.
10 yards passing, despite the fact that I think he had -9 points at halftime because of 3 interceptions. Anthony, can I expect 37 points out of Eli every week?
Come on.
That's a clown question, bro.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely not Aaron Rodgers, who you can't expect that kind of production from.
No, he's outscoring Rodgers. Woo, Eli!
Yeah. That was a pretty crazy game. It was a pretty great fourth quarter for the Giants. No, you cannot expect 37.8 points out of anybody. So, you got a little bit lucky there. And as far as that mini game goes, it's sort of the second week of high scoring QB because it's hard for any other player to compete with QB points in our league.
It was highest scoring team, right, in week 1.
The second place person was a running back, so
all right, well.
Which was Reggie Bush, I think.
I know. Thanks a lot, jerk. So, so Merrill, are you at all concerned that, let's see, what do you have here? 53, 54 points coming out of 2 guys, both on the Giants, in a 98-point game?
Of course I'm concerned. I stink at fantasy. Of course I'm concerned. But I'm more concerned that Matt Forte went down with an injury. That's not going to help because now I have to rely on Mikel Leshore or David Wilson or I don't know who else at this point in my RB2 slot. I don't have the kind of depth at running back that I would like. And there's a report out today that Mikel Leshore might not be activated for the next week. So because he hasn't been able to practice because he's been suspended. So a little worried about that. But hopefully, I don't think I'm going to be getting 1.17 yards out of Des Bryant every week. And I think Jason Witten had a bunch of drops. And, he'll perform a little better. And Adrian Peterson will do better than 8 points. So
it's also worth noting that you probably will get at least 1 positive point out of your defense. Although you would be sure to have so if you had invested $2 in a defense.
Ryan effing Tannehill, who was terrible in week 1. I'm like, well, you can't go wrong with Ryan Tannehill as your defense.
Yeah.
Or as you playing against your defense. And sure enough, the freaking Reggie Bush goes nuts.
Play your matchups there, you bargain shopper. But you wish you spent that extra $1 now.
No.
Merrill, I gotta chastise you a little bit for making that trade with Hillers on Tuesday, or on Thursday. You might have given your backup QB a bit of an upgrade getting Russell Wilson as opposed to Jake Locker, but you really put yourself in a hole from here on out having to play matchups for the most part, and waiver wire, the money burning game with your free agency money to just start a decent defense this from here on out. I think
I
Steelers is probably startable every week, or at least for most weeks, and it's going to be tough for you.
I disagree a little bit. I mean, I agree the Steelers are a defense you can start every week and feel pretty good. I guess my thought is there's usually by week 4 or 5, there's a defense out there that's a lot better than everybody thought there was, maybe a couple of them. And you can usually pick one of those guys up off waivers. You got to invest a little bit in them to get those guys. But I feel
More
like
than $1?
Yeah, more than $1. And I feel like you can go out there and get those guys with that. So instead of spending an extra $1 at the draft and possibly not getting Adrian Peterson, I'd rather play the waiver wire defense game and keep Adrian Peterson on my team. Unlike Hillers, who likes to spend all his money on defenses and kickers.
How much money did you spend on your last pick there? You saying you left no money on the table when it came down to the last pick in the draft?
That is correct.
$0?
That's correct. No money on the table.
Well, that's not exactly true, given that you came into the draft $6 short due to your own clerical errors.
Yeah, I guess that's
true. I spent $195, leaving $6 on the table per my little printed spreadsheet here, Merrill.
That's because you didn't check my roster correctly, Hillers.
Well, I told you I didn't have a computer.
Look at who's all well prepared now.
All right, so what do you think about Matt Forte there, Mike? I think that's going to be an issue for you.
Yeah, I think so too, because he's not going to play.
Yeah.
That's usually bad.
Problematic.
So, I'm a little worried about it. It's not a high ankle sprain, they're saying. I don't really know what it is at this point. I'm just hoping LaSure comes in and at least is serviceable, can get me, maybe 50 to 75 yards a week, maybe a touchdown here or there. And that should hopefully be enough to carry me maybe to some good matchups. So I feel like my team's a team that's going to get better with Hakeem Nicks getting healthier every week, with Adrian Peterson getting healthier every week, with Jason Witten getting healthier every week. I feel like my team's going to get better, and then eventually I'm going to get Forte back too. So I feel like second half of the year my team's is going to be a lot better than it is right now, and hopefully I can just hang on until then.
You still like your championship pick for yourself?
No.
Okay.
You'll see in my power rankings.
Okay. Well, let's get on. Is that the last team?
Mental Midgets will be the last
All right,
team.
Okay.
Mental Midgets lose again, go to 0-3. I think that's right. They score 87.4 points. Hillers, is it panic time for the Mental Midgets?
Well, it definitely seems like the mighty may have fallen a little bit here. I think this definitely speaks to the value of occasionally tinkering with your lineup. The problem with guys on your bench like Ben Tate is, when do you start him? I know he thought he had some opportunity with the Dwyer thing, but obviously that didn't work. Stafford looks, nothing like last year's Stafford at all. That would be of some concern to me. Torrey Smith might have been, a little bit more hyped than was appropriate.
Thank you. I'll take credit for that.
Okay. You can, but he does still have some very solid guys. I mean, I no one in the league would not want to have LaShawn McCoy, or Gronkowski, and Macklin's still a good receiver, and this team did take a hit with the Fred Jackson thing.
Yeah, big time.
And if Stafford is doing bad, Alex Smith is doing good, and Mendenhall could come back midway through the season too. He picked up Ogletree. Maybe that was, a little week one frenzy, but it's too soon to panic.
Yeah, Anthony, Seth in week 1 had 74 points. In week 2, he's got 87 points. What do you think's going wrong for this team?
It's Matt Stafford's slow start, I think, and clearly losing Fred Jackson. Those two, if those two were there and producing, you're looking at over 100 points both weeks, probably pretty easy.
Yeah.
Until he can find solutions to those two major problems, this team's going to have to show me something to be scary.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Matt Stafford, 13 points in his first 2 weeks. That is not, he went in the first round in a lot of snake drafts and maybe end of the first, early second, and he is not performing there, just like the rest of these top QBs that everybody thought they could rely on. So he's definitely hurting them. Major RB2 issues right now. Starting Jonathan Dwyer is never a good way to go. And Fred Jackson, like you said, is hurt. If Rashard Mendenhall can come back next week and be Rashard Mendenhall, then that will be helpful to this team. But Yeah, you're right, Anthony. This is not a team that you're too scared of like we were last year. Hillers, what are you doing there, Hillers?
Messing with my power rankings.
Other than
This
eating,
analysis is very insightful.
other than eating the microphone because they can hear your every breath.
Well, yeah, I get distracted when I start working the pencil.
So, that's,
What about when you're writing stuff down?
Heyo.
oh,
Well, now I've sort of lost the flick. I may have to wing the power rankings.
wing them. Okay.
Just
Anything else on any of these teams we need to talk about here? Oh, Anthony, you mentioned one more thing on midgets here. And this is kind of a philosophical thing, but he started his QB against his defense, and you were kind of explaining to me why that might not be the best idea.
I don't want to out a lot of my fantasy secrets there, but I guess you just did. So
It's not really a secret.
It's out of the closet.
Personal issue for me is starting your defense against your quarterback. I call that fantasy suicide. You might negate any interception points completely from your team, but you're having yourself on touchdowns. And
Right.
in this league, when passing touchdowns are worth 6, you need every one of those points.
You're hedging your bets.
You're having yourself on everything, even interceptions. Like typically you'd get points for that from your defense. You get nothing. I mean, you don't lose points, but you don't gain points either. So
Now, I think that this conversation is going to cause some kind of mathematical email chain to come out tomorrow or the next day. I mean, there's probably no actual facts behind this.
No,
but
there's actual facts. You're hedging your bets. You know what I mean? It's if you do fine, you've negated your own points. And if you do badly, you really screwed yourself. It's like you just got to pick your offense or your defense. And if your offense is all on one, that's not a way to win games in this league.
right. Yeah, you're playing it safe. You're saying I can't choose who to start, my quarterback or my defense, so I'll just start them both and hope my other players, can get those points.
How does that turn out well? What are you hoping for? Special teams points?
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping for pick sixes, basically. You're hoping that if the defense runs back touchdowns, it doesn't hurt your quarterback, and you get all those points. But really, that's about it. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, let's get to the power rankings here. Last week we had our first ones after week 1. Things tend to change a little bit from week to week early in the season. So I think last week we started with Anthony going 12-6. So Hillers, let's start with you this week. Are you ready? Do you have your bottom 6 there?
I think I'm ready. I had started out with just little minor incremental moves, and the top really hadn't changed all that much. But after looking at at these teams and what they have going on their prospects, there's some fairly dramatic shifts this week. So not at the bottom though. At 12 is Assassins.
Okay.
Because they're a dumpster fire still. And
Kind of saw that coming.
Yep. Nothing to suggest that would change. At 11, I have TDJ. I believe I had them 10 last week.
Okay.
So a little bit of a drop, but not that bad. At 10, Iron Pirates. So.
Suck it, Nick.
Suck it, Nick. Yeah. At 9 is the Cougars. Dropped from 7 last week because of their well-discussed issues. At 8, right now I have the Midgets, which is probably the biggest drop from last week, just because of their problems with Stafford. At 7, Danny, D-Money and the Pimptastics, big drop for him as well. He had to expect it after having one big week and one crummy week, and that's it, right? Until for the first half. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anthony, I'll go ahead here. I'll let you be the anchor man. At 12, I have Hitmen because who are we kidding? I always finish last in this league, and I will never make playoffs again.
Is it that or championship? Make up your mind
It's
with this
last.
bipolar nonsense.
That's last. Forte went down. I knew it. I said, that's it. That's it. So Hitmen last. 11, Assassins for, again, what we discussed. 10, bag full of Jacksons. I'm still not a believer in this team, but they are climbing a little bit, and I'm going to give them one more week, and they might make a big jump next week, depending on how they do. Touchdown Jesus at 9. Again, they put up 100 points, and they're sitting at the bottom of my power rankings. I'm not sure why, and I'm going to regret that when they crushed me this week. 8, Mental Midgets. Maybe that's a little high for them. Maybe that's a little bit of nostalgia, thinking about how they just crushed us all last year until they got to the playoffs.
Latent fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
And at 7, I have Iron Pirate, Miscreant Crew. And again, maybe that's a little high for Nick. After discussing this, our analysis was very insightful for me as well. But that's my bottom 6, Ant.
So I think that Hillers and I have the most similar rankings in the bottom 6. I think we have the same bottom 6, but in a pretty drastically different order. So here it goes. Number 12, I have the Mental Midgets. I cannot.
Ooh.
Wow.
I
Their
cannot
first
put them
12
any
in
higher
years.
until they show me something.
Wow.
Number 11, I have the Cougars. Same reasons as Midgets, but I think Cougars players a little bit better.
And those were our two favorites coming into the year, by the way, like the two teams that everybody really liked a lot. So
Yeah, I mean maybe it's a 2-week overreaction, but they got to show me something. Number 10, I have Iron Pirates dropping 1 spot. Number 9, I have Assassins. 8, TDJ, and 7, D-Money dropping 3 spots for me.
okay. Hillers, give us your top 6.
Top 6, I have myself in number 6. Still not quite a believer, but hope is starting to creep its way up.
You never are.
After some of the early victories. Usually I'm 0-3, so we'll see what second half will bring if my trades can improve my team or doom them. Bag full of Jacksons at number 5.
Wow.
Big upgrade for them. I mean, I'm looking at the team. What do I hate about it? Nothing really. It's not a great team, but do I see them sneaking into a wild card? Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Let's see. At number 4, I have the Hitmen. Actually, a little bit of an increase, which, considering your rants, makes it hard to believe. But I still like your
So
players.
I lose Forte and you raise me in the rankings?
Compared to some of the, it was more other people sinking down than you rising up.
Okay.
But I still think you can win. And then, but maybe you'll drop next week. 3, EBS. And then 2 is the same as last week with Cannons at 2 and PBJ at 1.
Okay. I think our 1 and 2 are going to be, they're going to be the same two teams in just mixed orders. But number 6, I have the Cougars. I'm giving them one more week before I jump ship on them. I'm not ready to give up on McFadden yet. I'm done with Chris Johnson, but I think McFadden will make a little comeback here. At 5, I've got Hillers because that's where you always end up every year, sneaking in a wild card.
Number 5.
Yep. And then 4, I've got D-Money. I was a little surprised you guys had him a lot lower. That was interesting to me. But I've got him there. I feel like he's made some good moves, and he's really climbed in my rankings quite a bit. 3, I've got EBS. Anthony, you keep, you're right there. I just can't put you in that top tier yet because I feel like these other rosters just have a little more of a scare factor to them. 2, I've got PBJ. The Michael Turner issue might hurt him a little bit, so I dropped him down to 2. And at 1, I've got the Sex Cannons, just because everything always works out for Evan anyway. So, Anthony, what you got?
So number 6, I have Hillers. Number 5, I have Hitmen. 4,
People are crazy.
4, the biggest vault, I have Bag of Jacksons going for me from number 10 to number 4. 3, I have myself, EBS. 2, PBJ time. And 1, the Sex Cannons. Because like you said, it always seems to work out for him.
Everything always just works out for Evan. He just gets number 1 running backs dropped in his lap, Anyway, all right, guys, let's get to our predictions for next week here. So I think this video thing's working out pretty good. What do you guys think?
I can't imagine why anyone would want to look at us, especially when they're looking at us like looking at the screen or looking at the paper or something.
I'm hoping it's similar to like an around the horn thing.
I'm just not feeling the appeal.
It's a little weird, I guess.
I'm not
I don't know.
photogenic, nor are any of us.
Yeah.
We should all have slideshows.
I am very photogenic, so you shut your
Big
mouth.
melon head.
All right, so let's get to our predictions here for week 3. Not a doubleheader week, should fly by pretty quick here. Let's start with what my screen's at, which I guess is me. And we're going to start with the Huberston Fieldville Hitmen versus Touchdown Jesus. Hitmen obviously reeling from a Forte injury. Can LaShore step in and help the Hitmen? I am going to pick Touchdown Jesus to win this game. Anthony, what do you got?
Based on matchups, I also have TDJ.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems crappy for me to put TDJ at 11 and you at 4 in the power rankings and say he's going to win, but it looks bad for you this week, especially because I don't know what LaShore's role, if any, is going to be. I guess that's my main concern.
And my other running back is going against San Francisco, so that's not good.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. So, okay. 3 TDJs. Next, we have Bag Full of Jacksons at End Zone Bombardment Squad. Coming into the EBS house here, Bag Full of Jacksons rising like a comet in the power rankings here. like a phoenix, not a
Like
sphinx.
a phoenix.
Yeah.
Sphinxes are pretty stationary.
Looking at the matchups here, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, Cleveland. I don't see any of the matchups that I fear really, so I'm going to go with Anthony here. EBS wins.
Yeah, it's going to be this is, I think, going to be one of the closest games of the week. And it's only because Ant doesn't have anything scary in his matchups that I'm going to go ahead and give it to EBS by a very small margin, less than 5 points, because the guys that they're showing for Dave, probably not who he's going to start. I mean, I would definitely start Deshaun Jackson rather than Alshon Jeffrey, for instance.
Right.
And maybe a couple other change-outs here. So.
Okay, Anthony?
Well, I sure hope you guys are right, but I'm going to have to objectively give it to Jackson's on this one.
Why is that?
I think his running backs are going to go off, and I think that's going to be the difference maker in this. I think that we'll probably have equal production out of quarterbacks and wide receiving core and probably even tight ends, but I think that Frank Gore is going to go ape all over Minnesota, and that's going to be the difference maker.
Okay.
It depends. I mean, you know what you're not going to want to see is San Francisco go up by any huge margin early in that game, because then it's just going to be Frank Gore until they get tired of him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay, next matchup: Hillers playing against the Sex Cannons here. Rodgers with another tough matchup. I think that Seattle defense is for real this year. But the rest of the matchups not so bad for Hillers. I'm going to pick Hillers to win this one here over Sex Cannons in an upset. Sex Cannons' first loss of the year, even though CJ Spiller's playing Cleveland. My God. All right, Anthony, who you got?
Because of CJ Spiller versus Cleveland, I gotta go Cannons. I don't like his Denver versus Houston matchup for Peyton.
Right.
But a lot of other things are working his way. Colston versus KC. T. Gons has been on fire. He's got Bills defense versus Cleveland.
Has he literally been on fire?
He's currently still on fire.
Wow. That's got to be tough to tackle.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd give the Bills defense a total lock against Cleveland. And if for anyone looking at the screen or anything right
They're
now,
stout.
obviously I'm not going to be starting Bradshaw. I'm going to be starting Richardson. I think he's projected to get something like 16 points. Greg Jennings, I expect, will be back. It looks like he's got a long week to rest up, so I won't have to start Mike Williams again. So, I'm feeling a little hopeful. I'm going to give it to myself also in a very slight victory. But I would rather not play this team at all.
Yeah, I'm glad it's you and not me.
Mm.
Iron Pirate, Miscreant Crew at D Money and the Pimtastics. Danny projected to get 0 points right now. He has not set his lineup and has no players on his team. Is that right?
It seems wrong to me that he would have no players.
Yeah. Did he quit the league?
Maybe a slight glitch.
He might have quit the league. It's going to be tough to project without any players on this team here.
Well, I can tell you who he's probably going to be starting is Matt Ryan against San Diego. He's hoping Ryan Matthews comes back, but he's playing Atlanta. DeMarco Murray against Tampa Bay. Jonathan Stewart against the Giants. Antonio Brown versus Oakland. Andre Johnson versus Denver. Who knows in the tight end spot? Mystery. Because of the Hernandez thing. Whoever he can get off the waivers.
Well, Nick's not much better with Greg Olson. So
now Ravens are playing Baltimore, and Janikowski is playing Pittsburgh.
Okay. I'll take Danny here, Anthony.
I'm going to take Nick.
You hate Nick's team, though.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Maybe the fact that Danny has no players has something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Matthews. He doesn't have a tight end, and his flex is questionable.
Even if Matthews comes back, I mean, he's probably not going to be, getting all the carries right away. They're probably going to limit him a little bit. So even his first game back, he won't be that effective if he does come back.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, just for the reasons that there's so many question marks, I think Nick has a real good chance at winning, especially given some of his matchups look pretty cake. So.
Okay. Final matchup of the week here. Then we can shut this thing down. Peanut butter jelly time versus mental midgets. Peanut butter jelly time, obviously top of everyone's power rankings, at least second or better. Looks like Robert Griffin III is ridiculous.
Against the Bengals.
Yeah, they're going to score a lot. Arizona, tough defense for McCoy. I'm going to go with peanut butter jelly time here to get to 3-1. Hillers.
Yeah, big time. I think this one has the potential to really showcase new power versus old. And if he's not feeling no, yeah, I why would you start it? I know the Michael Turner thing is a problem, but even if Pierre Thomas doesn't do well, I'll still take it.
It's a good matchup for Thomas.
I'll still take it.
Kansas City. So, Anthony.
PBJ in a double bongo.
Double bongo. Wow. That would put I'm not sure what that
real.
means. That would put the Mental Midgets at 0-4 to start the season, with basically 3 losses left to play with, maybe only 2 to play with if they want to get to the playoffs. So that'd be quite the.
That'd be something, wouldn't it, Merrill?
Coup d'etat. What do they call it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Coups de grace, something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure in Charlotte that's actually how they say it.
Yes, it is. All right, guys.
We missed the Assassins versus the Cougars, I think.
Did we? Really?
Oh yes.
Yeah, in
the dumpster fire special.
Does anybody really care about this game? Yeah, them, I guess. I'm going with Assassins. I think Cougars lose and start the fire sale Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening at around 8:45.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this up and down, yeah, Assassins. I mean, especially with Forte out, Michael Bush could really do some damage against the Rams.
I'm going to stick my neck out for Brad also. I'm going to say Brad takes it.
Wow, Troy. You should really think about that. You should really consider your life choices.
That would put 2 teams at 0-4 to start the season. 2 teams that we had near the top of our power rankings preseason.
Our draft predictions always suck. Having said that, our week 3 predictions generally suck at least as much, if not more. So,
yeah, that's the truth.
It's a long season, which
Right.
Troy, you should feel really glad about, because we're picking Watson to beat you.
Yep. So, okay. Well, that about does it for the podcast, guys. What did you think of our first video cast?
I think
I think my icon says it all right now.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, what we're hoping is, and I don't know if we get maybe 1 or 2 of you guys on there, maybe asking questions or watching the live stream, and we'll see how that goes. But we figure we give it a shot. It's a little different. If we'll see what kind of response we get, but let us know. I'm sure you will. You always do. And let us know what you think. And if need be, we'll just go back to audio. I am going to try to publish an audio podcast as well. I know a lot of people like to listen to it when they do something called exercise and, maybe driving their car. You definitely don't want to watch this while you're driving in your car. We don't recommend that.
or ever.
Hey Mike,
Really?
is there some kind of email address that our listeners can email and ask us questions?
There is. We prefer you just do it at the bottom of the 4SFFL post announcing the podcast, but you can also email at sandlotcast@gmail.com. That is checked occasionally. Hopefully I'll get a little better at checking that. But, yeah, feel free to do that. Also, if you want to just comment at the bottom of the YouTube video, that could work as well. So.
Money.
I'm a little skeptical about this foray into a multimedia empire.
Yeah.
But
We'll see how many hits we get. We might get like
Seems
10
like it
million
seems-
hits.
that will not happen.
Yeah.
That is not a thing.
We should have brought some cats out to run around and play with some yarn or something. People love that crap,
Next week I'll strip. How about that? That'll bring the
That'll-
viewers in.
that'll
That's what they
get some
like on the
hits.
internet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get some hits.
A lot of nipples.
Yeah.
My God.
All right, we need to shut this down. It's
Yeah,
getting ugly.
let's.
Okay. Well, guys, thanks for joining. Again, let us know what you think about VideoCast, and we're going to get out of here. Good luck to everyone in week 3, except for whoever I'm playing. And we will talk to you guys next week. Let's shut it down.